The logical problem of evil. What is it and why does it matter? Basically, the logical problem of evil consists of three premises that lead to a contradiction, which if all these premises hold, then classical theism can't be true. So what are these three premises? Well, the first premise is that basically a perfectly good God would stop all evil. Second premise is that a perfectly powerful God could stop all evil. And the third premise is that evil exists, or evil occurs. There is evil. Now, this is a contradiction because clearly if premises 1 and 2 are true, then premise 3 can't be true. So we want to address this, look at this. This is a classical problem, goes back a long ways. So various formulations have existed over time, and all this expresses one form of the argument from evil, which is one of the biggest obstacles to classical Christian belief. So a lot of Christians want to pay attention to it. Other people talk about it. Very valuable. So let's look at, let's work backwards. Let's start with the third premise and see, well, maybe this premise actually isn't true. Evil exists or evil occurs. So what would it mean for that premise 3 not to be true? Well, I think it would have to mean either that just evil is an illusion in some sense, so all the things that we think are bad, suffering, crime, murder, the mental anguish, wicked intentions or actions, that all these things are in fact do not occur, or they're just kind of merely illusory. Well, that seems really counterintuitive and incredibly improbable. And even if one wanted to say something like that evil is just an illusion, it would seem like even that illusion itself would be bad in some real and meaningful sense. So certain religious traditions and philosophies have tried to hold that evil is just an illusion, but I don't think that's going to work particularly well. Further, for a Christian, it's not a good approach because the Bible is very serious about the warning against moral evils, and clearly sees the world as being fallen from the ideal state it was supposed to be in. So to deny evil would be a really bad move, I think, for a Christian theologian who's trying to respond to the logical problem of evil. So we can move on then to the second premise. Well, maybe, contrary to premise 2, God isn't perfectly powerful, or some such thing as that. And if we want to deny premise 2, then we get into other theological problems as well, because all of these bad things occur in the world, and we not only kind of regret that they happen, but we want for things to be made better. And so if God isn't perfectly powerful, then it seems that we would have a hard time trusting or hoping that he could set things to right in the end. And certain theological varieties of Christianity have attempted this. So you find process theism sort of takes this route, saying that basically God is kind of just having to work with things as they happen and doesn't have the ability to stop all evil. But typically Christians have held that God does possess the ability to stop evils. Any evil that occurred, God could have stopped. He possesses that power, but that he doesn't. And so that brings us to the first premise. Now this here seems to be the premise that we want to go after. The idea that a perfectly good God would stop all evil. This is typically the approach that theodicists, people who respond to the problem of evil, have taken, and they say that there in fact may be good reasons for God to allow evils, or even to cause things that we see as evil. And the analogy that's made in Scripture, for instance in the book of Hebrews and in discourse about this, might be, for instance, to the role of a parent. A good parent doesn't protect the child from all suffering or anything bad that might happen to them, but often allows a child to experience certain minor kinds of suffering and pain as a consequence for bad choices, or even as a form of punishment for bad choices, in order to encourage good behavior and discourage bad behavior. And so perhaps God is kind of like a good parent in that way, wanting to establish our agency, to learn the consequences of our actions, even punishing us for things that are wrong. These are kinds of evils that a perfectly good God might allow. And so looking at the three premises then, We no longer have a logical problem of evil in place if we deny premise one, that a perfectly good God would stop all evil. I think this is a scriptural response and one that's perfectly logically coherent. So people ask kind of questions about, why God allows evil. I think the response that is very helpful to give in some very meaningful sense is God allows evil because he loves us.